Imagine being in a place where the echo of artillery and the sight of smoke is part of daily life. Welcome to the Israel-Hamas conflict. This age-long conflict has roots that go back further than one might think. To truly understand it, we must travel back in time to the year 1948, a year that saw the birth of a new nation, Israel. This formation, however, came with a price: the Palestinian Exodus, a mass departure of Arab Palestinians who either fled or were expelled from their homes. A narrative of loss and displacement began, and it's a narrative that continues to this day. Fast forward to 1987, a time of significant change in the region. A new player entered the scene, an Islamic political organization known as Hamas. Founded amidst the First Intifada, an uprising against Israeli occupation, Hamas quickly gained traction, embodying the anger and aspirations of many Palestinians. The year 2006 marked another critical juncture. Hamas, once a fringe group, rose to power in Gaza. This rise wasn't without controversy. Its use of armed resistance and its refusal to recognize Israel drew sharp criticism. But for many Palestinians, Hamas represented a voice, a resistance against what they perceived as an oppressive occupation. However, the rise of Hamas also meant an escalation in tensions. Israel, a newly formed nation, was now facing a group that not only challenged its authority, but also its very existence. This led to a series of conflicts, each one escalating the situation further. And so the stage was set, a stage characterized by power struggles, ideological differences, and territorial disputes. A stage where the players were not just these two entities, but also the international community, each with their own interests and alliances. Thus, a stage was set for a conflict that would span decades, characterized by power struggles, ideological differences, and territorial disputes. In this arena of conflict, aggression has become a cycle, an endless loop of attack and retaliation. What we witness between Israel and Hamas is not a series of isolated incidents, but a pattern, a rhythm of violence that seems to play out repeatedly. It's a cycle that begins with rocket attacks, often instigated by Hamas, which Israel retaliates against, leading to an escalation of conflict. These rocket attacks are not random acts of violence, but rather strategic moves in a high-stakes game of chess. Each side is trying to gain an upper hand to assert dominance, to make a statement. But at the heart of it all is a deeply rooted hatred, a mutual distrust that fuels this cycle of violence. The cycle then spirals into suicide bombings, a horrifying tactic that has claimed countless innocent lives. These attacks, primarily carried out by Hamas, are designed to spread fear and chaos. They are not just attacks on individuals, but on the very fabric of society, aimed at destabilizing and causing maximum damage. Then comes the military operations, where Israel, in its bid to defend itself, launches strategic strikes against Hamas. These operations, while aimed at neutralizing threats, often result in significant collateral damage, further deepening the wounds of this conflict. Major escalations like the Second Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation, and the Gaza war between late 2008 and early 2009, only serve to highlight the intensity of this cycle. The Second Intifada was marked by widespread violence and terror attacks, and the Gaza war brought forth a level of destruction that Gaza had not seen before. These escalations, these peaks in the cycle, are stark reminders of the devastating potential of this conflict. They serve as grim milestones in a journey that seems to be going in circles, with no clear end in sight. As the cycle of violence continues to spin, the hope for peace seems to fade into the background. The question remains, how do we break this cycle? How do we move from a rhythm of violence to a melody of peace? These are questions that need urgent answers, for the sake of all those caught in the crossfire of this relentless conflict. Behind the political and military maneuvers, there lies a grim reality, a humanitarian crisis. When we delve deeper into the Israel-Hamas conflict, we are faced with a harrowing image of human suffering. The impact of this long-standing conflict on the people living in Gaza and Israel is profound and distressing. The scars of war are not just physical, they are etched deep within the hearts and minds of the people affected. Innocent civilians, caught in the crossfire, bear the brunt of the violence. The high civilian casualties are a stark reminder of the human toll of this conflict. Men, women, and children lose their lives, their homes, and their loved ones. Each casualty is not just a number, but a life full of potential extinguished prematurely. The destruction of infrastructure further exacerbates the situation. Hospitals, schools, and homes, no place is spared. The rubble of what once stood as symbols of civilization now serves as a grim testament to the devastation of war. This destruction not only impacts the immediate physical safety and living conditions of the people, but also hampers their long-term recovery and development. But the impact of the conflict is not confined to the physical realm. The psychological trauma suffered by the population is equally devastating. Imagine the constant fear of living under the threat of violence, the uncertainty of not knowing if your loved ones are safe, the despair of seeing your life's work destroyed in an instant. This psychological trauma has far-reaching implications affecting the mental health of individuals and the overall well-being of the community. The plight of the children is particularly heart-wrenching. Growing up in an environment of violence and fear, their childhood is stolen from them. Their education is disrupted, their development hindered, and their dreams and aspirations overshadowed by the harsh realities of war. The real cost of this conflict is not counted in military victories or defeats, but in innocent lives lost and shattered. Many have tried to broker peace, but the road to resolution is riddled with obstacles. Such is the story of the Israel-Hamas conflict, a tale of failed peace efforts, missed opportunities, and perpetual unrest. The first major attempt to resolve the conflict came in the form of the Oslo Accords in the early 1990s. These negotiations, facilitated by Norway, resulted in mutual recognition between the Palestine Liberation Organization and Israel, and set the stage for further peace talks. However, the accords were met with widespread criticism, and their objectives were never fully realized. The reasons? A lack of trust, disagreements over key issues such as the status of Jerusalem, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the continued cycle of violence. Fast forward to 2020, the world saw another significant effort towards peace with the Abraham Accords. These agreements marked a new era in Arab-Israeli relations, with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain formally recognizing Israel. Yet, despite these diplomatic advancements, the accords did little to address the root of the conflict, the long-standing Israeli-Palestinian dispute. The reason these peace efforts have failed to bring about lasting peace is multifaceted. Power dynamics, territorial disputes, and deeply ingrained historical narratives continue to fuel the fire. The absence of a unified Palestinian leadership and the ongoing Israeli settlements in the West Bank further complicate the peace process. Moreover, the involvement of external powers often serves to escalate the conflict, rather than mitigate it. These powers, driven by their own geopolitical interests, have often prioritized strategic alliances over a just and sustainable solution to the conflict. In the end, peace is not just about signing agreements and shaking hands. It's about addressing the core issues that drive the conflict, creating an environment conducive to dialogue and fostering trust between the parties involved. Despite numerous attempts, a durable peace agreement remains elusive. Yet the quest for peace continues, a testament to the enduring human spirit and the universal desire for a world free of conflict. Fast forward to today, the conflict has evolved, but the echoes of the past remain. The Israel-Hamas conflict, now in the 21st century, has taken on new dimensions while retaining its old roots. The year 2021 saw a significant escalation, with exchanges of rocket fire and airstrikes causing widespread devastation and loss of life on both sides. This spike in violence was a stark reminder that the conflict is far from resolved, with the underlying issues of land, identity, and sovereignty still at play. But there's a new twist in this modern conflict. Social media has become a battlefield of its own, where narratives are constructed, deconstructed, and fought over. Hashtags and viral videos are the new weapons, and the world is the audience. This digital war has opened a new front, where the struggle is not just over land, but also over narrative and perception. The conflict is no longer confined to the physical borders of Israel and Gaza, but unfolds on screens worldwide, influencing public opinion and international policies. Speaking of international response, it has been as varied as it is complex. Some nations have unequivocally backed Israel, citing its right to self-defense, while others have voiced their support for the Palestinian cause, condemning the Israeli actions as disproportionate. International bodies like the United Nations have attempted to mediate, calling for ceasefires and advocating for peace. Yet, their calls often fall on deaf ears as the cycle of violence continues unabated. This modern conflict is not just a clash of armies, but a clash of narratives, of ideologies, of histories. It's a war fought on multiple fronts, on the streets of Gaza and Tel Aviv, in the corridors of the United Nations, and on the digital platforms of social media. It's a war that's as much about the past as it is about the present and the future. In this modern age, the conflict continues to blaze, fueled by old grievances and new tensions. What does the future hold for the Israel-Hamas conflict? That is a question with no easy answers. As we edge closer to the end of our journey, let's cast our eyes forward and envision the possible scenarios that could unfold. The future of this conflict is subject to speculation and debate, with potential outcomes ranging from a peaceful resolution to ongoing strife. Firstly, we consider the possibility of a two-state solution. This long-discussed proposal would see the establishment of an independent Palestinian state living side by side with Israel, in peace and security. However, the road to this outcome is fraught with obstacles, not least the issues of land division, the status of Jerusalem, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Moreover, given the deep-seated mistrust between Israel and Hamas, the path to a two-state solution is a challenging one. Alternatively, there's the prospect of a one-state solution, where Israelis and Palestinians would live together in a single, democratic state. However, this scenario raises its own set of complex questions. Would such a state be Jewish or Arab in character? How would it ensure equal rights for all its citizens? The feasibility of a one-state solution is therefore also a topic of intense debate. Lastly, there's the grim possibility that the conflict may continue unabated. This scenario would see the cycle of violence persist, bringing more suffering to the people of the region. It's a prospect that no one wishes for, but one that cannot be dismissed out of hand. As we contemplate these potential futures, it's crucial to remember that the conflict between Israel and Hamas is not merely a political issue. It's a human tragedy that has caused immense suffering on both sides. The way forward is fraught with uncertainty and will require courage, compromise, and a genuine commitment to peace from all parties involved. While the future remains uncertain, one thing is clear. The path to peace will be long and fraught with challenges. From its roots in the mid-20th century to its current state, the Israel-Hamas conflict is a complex tapestry of history, politics, and human suffering. This intricate narrative we've journeyed through has shown us the depth and breadth of this enduring struggle. Let's take a moment to revisit the origins of this conflict, a tale woven with the threads of the mid-20th century's geopolitical climate. The creation of Israel, in an area historically inhabited by Palestinians, sparked the initial tensions, a spark that would ignite into the flames of an enduring conflict. The cycle of violence that followed has been a grim dance, a back and forth of attacks and retaliations, each side responding to the other in a ceaseless cycle. The humanitarian impact of this conflict is impossible to overlook. The lives of countless individuals have been irrevocably altered, their existence marred by the specter of violence and uncertainty. The human cost of this conflict is a reminder of the very real, very tangible consequences of a struggle often viewed through the lens of politics and ideology. Efforts to broker peace have been numerous, but all have ultimately stumbled on the road to resolution. These failed peace efforts underscore the complexity of the conflict, highlighting the deep-seated issues that continue to fuel the fire of discord. Yet, they also serve as a testament to the ongoing desire for a resolution, a beacon of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape. The modern conflict, as we've seen, is a continuation of this historical narrative, a new chapter in an age-old book. But it's also a reflection of contemporary geopolitical dynamics, influenced by changing global power structures and shifting alliances. The future of the conflict, while uncertain, is not without potential paths towards peace. These potential scenarios, however daunting, offer a glimmer of possibility, a chance for a different, more peaceful narrative to emerge. As we navigate through the pages of this conflict, we are reminded that the road to peace is not a sprint, but a marathon. It is a journey that requires understanding, patience, and above all, the will to move beyond the past towards a better future.